This is Seigi, a young man with the potential to become a real tough guy. Since childhood, his grandfather trained him in martial arts. He's strong enough to take on an entire gang, yet he never bullies anyone. On the contrary, he always goes out of his way to help the weak. Seigi is the nightmare of every bully out there. Each time he kicks one of them in the throat, they always cry out things like, "Do you know who my dad is? I've got connections, you know. Just wait till I go home and call my mom, then you'll see." Seigi freezes for about 5 seconds hearing these threats, absolutely terrified. The person he saved this time is a homeless man, his entire body covered in filth, hardship, and misery. However, the old man understood the principle of repaying a debt of gratitude. He pulled out a piece of glass with some indecipherable drawing on it. The moment Seigi reached out to accept it, a surge of electricity shot through his entire arm, bringing unbearable pain. The glass fragment dissolved, and the drawing on it mysteriously fused onto Seigi's hand. The man told Seigi that this was the key to uncovering the truth behind the world. Seigi couldn't grasp the hidden meaning behind those words. It wasn't until much later that he realized he had gotten himself tangled up in something utterly terrifying. The next morning, Seigi slept like a log and was late for school. Up ahead, his childhood friend, blessed with a rather generous figure, was rushing him along. Knowing he was about to be late, Seigi sprinted forward as fast as he could. Right at that moment, a girl stepped out from a narrow alley. Seigi couldn't stop or dodge in time, so he yelled out to warn her. But she suddenly assumed a fighting stance and delivered a powerful blow to Seigi's head, sending him crashing face first into the ground. Only then did the girl snap back to her senses and immediately apologized. An apology? What good is an apology now? Might as well just call the undertaker and hold the funeral. She extended her hand to help Seigi up, but the moment their hands touched, a flash of electricity sparked between them. The girl's apologetic expression instantly turned ice cold. "You'd better be careful." With those words, she walked away. Seigi arrived at class, where the teacher was lecturing about the kingdom of Selenistan, the world's second superpower and the only nation that dares to directly challenge the United States. They are Japan's ally, and if war breaks out between the two, Japan would side with Selenistan. Seigi couldn't care less about any of this. He was busy trying to scrub the tattoo off his hand, but no matter what he did, it wouldn't budge. Even if he scratched his skin raw, it would still be there. Seigi's friends had heard rumors about the US developing secret weapons that supposedly resembled tattoos. Somehow, through unknown means, these weapons had found their way into Japan's underworld. Maybe Seigi's tattoo was one of them. Taoko walked over and told them to cut the nonsense. She invited Seigi to go shopping that afternoon and promised to cook his favorite dish. She talked a big game, but when Seigi actually told her what he wanted to eat, Taoko had no idea how to make it. She had to go into the supermarket and ask around. While waiting, Seigi reached for his phone to call his grandfather. Right at that moment, the girl from that morning suddenly appeared, snatched his phone, and taunted him. "Catch me if you can." Seigi chased after her, of course. A guy without a single coin to his name losing his phone on top of that. His old man would beat him senseless when he got home. They ran all the way to an abandoned building before stopping. The girl asked Seigi where he got that tattoo. It originally belonged to the United States, and he shouldn't have it. While Seigi was still standing there confused, she lunged at him, unleashing a barrage of razor-sharp kicks. There was no intention to probe or test. Every strike was meant to destroy. Seigi was hammered with relentless attacks, forced to retreat step by step until his back hit the wall. Facing a sledgehammer of a punch from his opponent, Seigi realized there was no more room to dodge. He caught her fist and swept his leg forward, trying to throw her down. But mid-air, she landed another devastating blow to his head. The impact left him unable to track her movements anymore. She pummeled him like a mother disciplining her child. The only thing missing was a broomstick. Finally, as Seigi collapsed, she leaped into the air wielding a knife, pouncing toward him like a predator closing in on its prey. Just as Seigi thought it was all over, she stopped. "You're not bad at all. Holding out that long without even using the tattoo's power. But it's not something that should belong to a kid." Seigi snapped back, annoyed at being called a kid. "Who are you calling a kid? I'm older than I look, you know." She then explained everything about the tattoo in detail. To use it, you need to charge it with a trigger. Her trigger was chalk. She pulled out a stick of chalk and placed it in her hand. It vanished instantly, replaced by a small sphere of compressed air. When she tossed it upward and it struck the ceiling, a devastating explosion erupted. That was the power of the tattoo. enhancing physical abilities and granting supernatural powers to humans. Getting beaten up on the street wasn't enough. Back home, his grandfather gave him another beating. The old man hit even harder when he found out Seigi had just lost the fight. For reasons unclear, Seigi's father had died, yet his grandfather kept bringing up his son's death as a warning to his grandson. He died because he wasn't strong enough. Without strength, there is no justice. Seigi lay there thinking for a while, remembering his gentle yet profound father. Every time he lost or felt afraid, his father never scolded or berated him harshly. If you want something, reach your hand toward it. If your hand can't reach, then you must step forward. Thanks to those words of encouragement, even now, Seigi can still pick himself up after every fall. The only problem here is that the mysterious girl, also known as Izzy's, apparently had nothing better to do. She didn't even need to eat or sleep, just tailing Seigi around the clock, 24/7, morning, noon, and night without missing a single session. Her surveillance act looked intimidating, but her actual skill level was laughably low. Her tailing was so obvious that everyone noticed, and Seigi was no exception. On the way home, Tauko couldn't take it anymore and wanted to confront Izzy's to a one-on-one fight. "Whatever the hell you want, come out here and settle it." Luckily, Seigi stopped her in time. Who knows what would have happened otherwise? He spoke with Izzy's, wanting to know why he couldn't use the tattoo. "Everyone's trigger is different. Mine is chalk. That doesn't mean yours is the same." After that defeat, Seigi desperately wanted to get stronger. He couldn't understand whether he was actually strong or weak, losing in such a baffling way. Of course he was strong, but it also depended on who he was up against. Right at that moment, a massive guy built like a charging bull came barreling toward them. He rammed into a man, knocking him down. Seigi saw the situation, assumed a fighting stance, flipped the brute over, and followed up with a vicious downward elbow strike. The man who got knocked down was Tom, Izzy's subordinate. The two of them were part of a military unit tasked with recovering illegal tattoos. Tom had been pursuing Wilson, an American mafioso who came to Japan to buy tattoos. Just as they finished explaining, Seigi was suddenly sent flying backward, blood dripping from his mouth. Izzy's and Tom weren't too surprised. Someone with a tattoo is vastly different from an ordinary human. How could he be taken down so easily? Izzy's was about to step in when Seigi stopped her. He had to fight this guy himself. Giving up simply wasn't in his vocabulary. But the problem was that Wilson was immensely powerful. Unlike Seigi, he knew how to activate his tattoo. His punches were like a tank, unstoppable and devastating. Whatever they touched shattered to pieces. Seigi had to be extremely careful. A single clean hit would be enough to put him down for good. Seigi noticed that Wilson was incredibly strong, but had terrible fighting technique. Every attack left wide openings. Knowing this, Seigi waited for Wilson to leave his chin exposed and drove a straight punch right into it. Wilson spat blood, but wasn't fazed in the slightest. He grabbed Seigi's head, slammed him down, and drove a devastating punch into his stomach. The pain was excruciating. Every single move Wilson made inflicted catastrophic damage on Seigi. He was losing a lot of blood. Sensing the situation was critical, Izzy's rushed in. But at that very moment, following his father's words, Seigi reached his hand forward to catch Wilson's incoming fist. The tattoo on his palm absorbed his blood and transformed it into a gray sphere. It swallowed Wilson's punch whole, stunning both onlookers behind him. By the time they looked again, Wilson lay nearby, ravaged by the sphere's destructive force, his fate uncertain. Seigi also lost consciousness after sending his opponent into oblivion. He woke up to find himself in his room. Tom and Izzy's were tearing the place apart as if searching for something. They couldn't find a single dirty magazine anywhere. It seemed like Seigi's manhood served only one biological function, and nothing beyond that. A true disgrace to mankind. After the teasing, Izzy's told Seigi he absolutely had to join her team. Otherwise, the tattoo itself would kill him. Seigi's tattoo could generate a black hole, essentially a vacuum that devours everything within its range. This was an unstable power that could kill its own user. Seigi couldn't figure it out on his own. He needed proper, systematic training. That's why joining was not optional. Hearing this, Seigi grabbed Izzy's by the collar and shouted, "This is all your fault for dragging me into this. If it weren't for you people, I'd be at home right now working out my arm muscles with my little buddy downstairs." Izzy's threw Seigi to the ground, stepped on his neck, and said, "You were the one who wished for power. Now you don't want to pay the price. You want a free ride. The only free thing you'll get is a knuckle sandwich." With that, she and Tom left, giving Seigi time to think it over. If he refused, they would at the very least have to take the arm with the tattoo. The next morning, Seigi went to school as usual, and Izzy's appeared. She was the new transfer student. Seigi barely had time to sense something was off before she greeted him warmly. Instantly, every male student in the room glared at him as if he had stolen their family fortune. Things escalated even further when Izzy hinted that their relationship was something more than ordinary. And so Seigi was immediately lifted to a very high place by his classmates, hoisted up with great enthusiasm, and then hurled mercilessly into the school pond. In their eyes, having Tauko follow him around was already living the dream, a life fit for royalty. And now Izzy's too? Tauko, seeing Izzy's constantly trailing Seigi, also felt irritated and wanted to confront her for a clear explanation. But Izzy's couldn't care less. She just stared intently at Tauko's generous assets and started kneading away. Seigi had just climbed through the window and witnessed the scene, instantly losing a liter of blood through his nose. A while later, when the teacher walked into class, the male students looked half dead, and Izzy's was sporting a massive bump on her head. It wasn't until that afternoon that Izzy's finally had a private moment to talk with Seigi. The topic was nothing new. She needed him to join the team. Izzy's didn't hide the organization's true objective either. They wanted to prevent war, not fuel it. Selenastan's understanding of the tattoos was on par with, if not greater than, that of the United States. If war broke out, there was no telling who would win, but the devastation would be far worse than anyone could imagine. After hearing this, Seigi agreed, but he had one condition they had to accept. If he ever discovered the organization was going against its original mission, he wouldn't just leave, he would personally punish them. And just like that, Seigi officially joined an organization he didn't even fully understand. What Izzy's told him was likely just the tip of the iceberg. The truth behind it all would have to be uncovered by Seigi himself, slowly and gradually. The next morning, following Izzy's instructions, he headed to the rendezvous point. Before leaving, Seigi carefully checked Tauko's house first. Over the past few days, she seemed to be quietly investigating Izzy's on her own. To keep his childhood friend safe, Seigi had to be extra cautious, but what he didn't know was that the moment he left, Tauko had already seen everything. Because of Izzy's recent appearance, Seigi had been avoiding Tauko, which only made her more curious about who Izzy's was and what their relationship was. Izzy's was also a bit of a troublemaker. She didn't write down the address clearly, just drew a vague, cryptic map. When Seigi arrived, he hesitated, unsure if it was the right place. He also imagined the inside would be some kind of cutting-edge weapons cache, armed to the teeth and capable of obliterating anyone who stood in their way. But that was just his imagination. When Tom opened the door and welcomed Seigi inside, the entire house looked completely normal. In other words, this was genuinely just a place to live. And that, ironically, was what made Seigi feel something was off about the house. Seigi searched every corner of the house but couldn't find Izzy's anywhere. She called and told him to hang out with the cockroaches for a bit. She was busy outside and couldn't make it back. Seigi was a little annoyed but couldn't do anything about it, so he continued exploring the house. Right then, Tom received a phone call with critical intelligence. A coup was underway in Selenistan. Princess Arya had murdered the king and queen and seized the throne. This was anything but good news. Arya was infamous as the disgrace of the royal family. If she took power, only heaven knew whether the world would remain at peace. Tom had barely hung up when there was a knock at the door. He grabbed the handle, but before he could open it, the door shattered. The tip of an umbrella struck with such force that Tom collapsed on the spot. What he couldn't believe was that the attacker was Tauko. Feeling one hit wasn't enough, she delivered another blow. Seigi had just come up from the basement and witnessed the unbelievable scene. Meanwhile, trouble found Izzy's as well. She had just finished her work and was about to call home when a flash of light burst forth, blasting through the glass window and the wall behind it. Izzy's dodged in the nick of time, though part of her clothes was torn. The attacker was a man named Behemoth, a member of the Brahmin organization of tattoo wielders under the command of Princess Arya. He had come to seize the detonator tattoo. After that last attack, Izzy's petite, underdeveloped frame was exposed before him, and the allure was undeniable. But he showed no mercy, lashing his whip at unimaginable speed. The whip moved so fast it left after images, weaving into an inescapable net. Yet Izzy stood within it completely unharmed, her body moving with fluid grace, slipping through every gap with elegance. Seeing his attacks were useless, Behemoth stopped. He then attacked again with an even more relentless rhythm. After being stuck in a stalemate, unable to advance or retreat, Izzy leaped down to the floor below, grabbed some chalk and activated her tattoo. She compressed air into a stone and hurled it upward. A massive explosion erupted. Though it wasn't enough to seriously wound Behemoth, it bought Izzy's enough time to escape. Back at the house, Tom was badly injured. He urged Seigi to run. The attacker was an assassin from Selenistan, and Seigi was no match for her right now. But how could he run when the attacker was Tauco? Something abnormal must have happened to turn his normally gentle friend into someone so aggressive and dangerous. Just as Seigi suspected, within Tauco's own perception, everything seemed normal, yet she was witnessing bizarre things. She saw Princess Arya recruiting a blonde girl, and that same girl was right here, fighting to seize control of Tauco's body. Under these circumstances, Seigi had no choice but to fight. Tom reminded him that the thing inside the cardboard box was a trigger. He had to use it to enter his tattoo's sealed state and fight. The enemy understood what Tom was saying and charged forward, smashing the box before Seigi could enter his sealed state. However, her attacks also drew Seigi's blood, and that blood was just enough to activate his tattoo. Now Seigi's combat abilities improved across the board, especially his vision and perception. He could see every movement his opponent made, but his body couldn't keep up. Seigi took a fatal stab to the shoulder. The umbrella pinned him to the wall, leaving him unable to move. Villains always talk too much when they have the upper hand, then lose it in the most foolish way. The assassin Il was no different. She rambled on about her so-called justice without understanding a shred of reason. That time she spent running her mouth created just enough of an opening for Tom to activate his tattoo. He neutralized the supernatural phenomenon, immobilizing Il for a brief moment. Seigi quickly sprang up and delivered a powerful strike to Tauco's head. Tom seized the opportunity, grabbed her head, and dragged Il out. Getting a clear look at the enemy's face, Tom recalled a member of Brahman who possessed a body-snatching tattoo. It was this woman, without a doubt. The moment Tom finished speaking, she pulled out a sword and thrust it forward. Seigi immediately shoved his hand in between, using his own flesh and blood to block the blade. The blood from his wound was more than enough for Seigi to summon the vacuum, a power he was not yet ready to wield. Il had no idea how dangerous it was and blindly charged in. Fortunately for both her and Seigi, at the last second before the vacuum launched, Tauco pulled Seigi back, throwing the vacuum's trajectory off course. It shot toward the ceiling and expanded violently. Everything it touched vanished without a trace. Witnessing that, Il temporarily fell back. She was about to attack again when Behemoth called and ordered a retreat. Someone dangerous was heading their way. Izzy's arrived home and stared in disbelief. This was supposed to be their base, not a beached fish gasping for air with its mouth wide open. At least the people inside were safe, which was some consolation. The next day, Izzy began training Seigi. There was no denying Seigi's martial arts prowess. No one could match him in normal hand-to-hand combat except his grandfather. But when it came to using the tattoo, he was still a greenhorn. Izzy beat him without missing a single hit, leaving him sprawled on the ground. He still couldn't figure out how to harness the tattoo's power, especially how to summon the vacuum. Hearing this, Izzy showed him a photo of the previous owner of the detonator tattoo. Part of the man's body had been completely devoured. The vacuum was like a ravenous demon that had been starving for years. It didn't distinguish friend from foe. Whatever it touched, it consumed. Seigi was forced to promise he wouldn't use the vacuum at this stage. Otherwise, he would end up killing himself. On a deeper level, Seigi's tattoo was exceptionally powerful and terrifying. Izzy's tattoo was reasonably strong, though its effectiveness depended on the user's skill. As for Tom, he didn't have a real tattoo. His was merely a replica that could be attached and removed at will. Its power, however, was rather insignificant. Tauco's case was even more unusual. After the previous incident, a tattoo appeared on her forehead. To this day, no one knew why it appeared there or whether it could be removed. Whether it was a good tattoo or a bad one remained unknown. No research document had ever recorded such a case. Luckily, Tom had a concealment patch to hide Tauco's tattoo. Without it, her life would have been extremely difficult. Returning to Seigi's situation, although he had the tattoo, his body didn't seem capable of keeping up with its power. The recent battle, while dangerous, had revealed a lot worth discussing. Izzy's made Seigi run 10 kilometers every day, running until he was on the verge of puking his guts out before stopping. Before leaving, Tom gave him a device that could detect tattoo bearers. Anyone who entered its scanning range would be impossible to hide. On top of that, it could transmit Seigi's location to Izzy's and Tom. If he were ever attacked by another sealed, it would prove invaluable. With that, they let Seigi and Tako head home. Tom was utterly baffled. How had Seigi's information been leaked when his security measures had been impeccable? Not even the United States had been able to obtain information about Seigi. Given the circumstances, Tom suggested bringing Seigi back to America. The two of them alone would have a hard time fully protecting him. For some reason, Izzy's always dodged the subject whenever this topic came up. On the way home, Seigi kept blaming himself for dragging Tako into all of this. She didn't feel that way at all. In fact, she was happy. It felt like the two of them now shared a secret, and just the thought of that felt romantic. They chatted the entire way home, completely unaware that Behemoth and Il were tailing them from behind. Behemoth had no intention of attacking right now. He wanted to let Seigi live in peace for the time being, since it seemed even the United States didn't know about the new owner of the detonator tattoo. 2 weeks passed. Seigi could now leap across rooftops like a martial arts master straight out of Chinese legends. He was chasing down a criminal who specialized in stealing and selling illegal tattoos. No matter how far the thief ran, Seigi's shadow clung to him like a debt collector who refused to lose sight of his debtor. When the man realized he couldn't escape, he turned around and fought back with everything he had. Seigi dodged effortlessly and drove a powerful blow into his gut. The fight ended just like that, anticlimactically. Seigi's performance was decent, but his body was still too tense during combat, which was a cardinal sin. He needed to relax so his reflexes would sharpen, his strikes would be more decisive, and his power would reach unimaginable levels. That said, Izzy couldn't help but be amazed at how quickly Seigi adapted to the tattoo. It was as if a wild beast that could never be tamed had suddenly found its master. He wielded it with a proficiency that was baffling after just 2 weeks. Things continued smoothly. The three of them attended school as usual. Recently, Tako's physical abilities had undergone an unbelievable transformation. She was far stronger than an ordinary person, and her body felt light as a feather, no longer weighed down as before. Izzy wondered whether Tako's tattoo had awakened. When Tom called with urgent news, there was a distress signal from the White Rose unit. Besides Izzy's, quite a number of American military personnel were operating within Japan. One of them was Izzy's close friend, Lisa. Unfortunately, she had become a target of the Selenistan faction. In a ghastly, unpredictable manner, Il appeared inside the room like a phantom, slaughtering the soldiers one by one. She moved at inconceivable speed, her body sometimes leaving after images that made it impossible for anyone to track her movement. No matter how hard Lisa's 4-person team resisted, they were massacred with ease. Only Lisa managed to put up somewhat of a fight. Her tattoo could turn air into combustible material. She used that ability to create explosions and attack her opponent. But Il was on an entirely different level from Lisa. And then there was that sword. Not only was it razor sharp, it could also unleash blasts of wind powerful enough to pierce through targets. On top of that, the blade was sturdier than a shield. The explosions Lisa created had virtually no effect against it. Lisa deliberately struck a fire extinguisher, letting the gas spill out to obscure the enemy's vision and create an opening for herself. But all of Lisa's cunning was not enough to stop the bloodthirsty butcher who placed her mission above all else. In the end, Lisa was completely overpowered and cornered. At school, the moment Izzy received the news, she activated her tattoo. Sensing something was wrong, Seigi followed. Upon reaching a high-rise building, Izzy suddenly felt her body become heavy as stone, unable to move even an inch. Above her, Behemoth was waiting. He had set a trap here specifically to immobilize her and prevent her from disrupting the plan. Once he confirmed Izzy couldn't move at all, Behemoth left. Whether the trap was designed exclusively for Izzy or Seigi happened to be immune was unclear. But when he arrived, he felt nothing unusual. Izzy didn't care about herself. She told Seigi to head toward the building where the explosion had occurred. The moment he stepped inside, Seigi was met with a scene beyond what he could endure. The entire room was drenched in blood. For someone who had lived in peace like Seigi, it was too much to bear. He fought back the urge to vomit and pushed deeper inside to find Lisa. Following the sounds, Seigi made his way to the rooftop. Lisa had been completely subdued. Il's clothes were torn to shreds, yet she didn't have a scratch on her. The horrific scene shattered Seigi's composure. He charged forward, only to be blasted down the stairs by a gust of wind from Il's blade. Fortunately, Tom appeared at just the right moment and caught him. Seigi wanted to go back and fight, but Tom held him back. Seigi was a secret that couldn't be exposed. Tom couldn't risk letting Lisa see him. And so, the two of them could do nothing but watch as Lisa was taken away. Tom couldn't help but wonder, why was Selenistan acting so aggressively? Were they trying to declare all-out war? Seigi couldn't worry about that right now. He climbed the fence back into school grounds and was caught by Tauko. She desperately wanted to know where the two of them had been. The memory of that bloody, merciless scene flashed back, and Seigi lost control, snapping at Tauko. It took him a while to realize he wasn't himself. How had things come to this? Tauko was deeply hurt after the conversation. She wondered how she could ever truly understand someone. Her friend beside her suggested using her generous assets as a weapon, saying no guy could possibly resist that. On Izzy's side, after a moment of emotional turmoil, she regained her composure and went to examine the scene. Seeing Lisa's hat and uniform ignited an uncontrollable fury within her. She immediately called for reinforcements and used every available resource to track the enemy's movements. When everything was ready, the last thing Izzy did before setting out was chain Seigi up. Neither he nor Tauko understood what they were doing. How could they treat their own partner like this? Tom explained that under normal circumstances, Seigi absolutely had to be taken back to the United States. The detonator tattoo, or rather Seigi himself, was the key to understanding every tattoo in existence. They couldn't let him fall into enemy hands. Staying in Japan was the best they could offer him, and this was the price. Tauko didn't care about any of that. All that mattered to her was being by his side. It didn't matter where they were or what they had to do. Truly a hopeless case of lovesickness that not even reincarnation could cure. Hearing this, Seigi not only disagreed with the restraints, but was actually fired up. The path he and Tauko walked would be decided by the two of them alone. No one else had the right to dictate it. With that, Seigi used his strength to rip his arm free from the cuffs. The blood that spilled activated his tattoo, and Tom was taken down in an instant. The two of them set off toward Izzy's battlefield. When Izzy received the news from Tom, she let out a long sigh. What could she do but finish her own fight before those two little wildcats got there? On the Selenistan convoy, they were trying to transport Lisa out of Japan when someone was standing in the middle of the road. They were about to curse out whoever had a death wish when they realized it was Izzy's. The driver began activating his tattoo, ready for battle. Izzy's did the same. Even if you get on your knees and beg for mercy right now, offering yourself up on a silver platter, I still won't let you off. I'm going to crush every last one of you, right here, right now. As the two sides glared each other down, a sword came flying out of the cargo hold and soared into the air. It was like the starting signal for a battle to the death. Behemoth swung his whip of death with devastating force. Wherever it struck, lives were lost. Human bodies were like fragile sheets of paper, torn apart without resistance. Il was no less terrifying. With her blade in hand, wherever she went, slaughter followed. Not a single soldier could survive a swing of her sword. She was the grim reaper of the battlefield, relentlessly harvesting the souls of the living. Surrounding the battlefield were numerous tactical infantry units, arranged in multiple rows and layers, concentrating their firepower on the enemy. But it was completely useless. As expected, the gap between ordinary humans and superhumans was one that couldn't be bridged with firearms. If there was any good news on the battlefield, it was Izzy's. With her close combat skills and masterful use of firearms, she managed to land several well-placed shots on Behemoth. But it wasn't enough to bring him down. The fact that he even flinched and felt some pain was already a good sign. As for Il, she was like a phantom on the battlefield, her entire body flickering in and out of existence. Even Tom, operating from the house with the support of high-tech equipment, couldn't keep up. He was at a loss for how to command the soldiers to match the enemy's tempo when Seigi's figure appeared beside him. The boy had just taken a brutal slash from Il. Old enemies face to face. This was more than a clash of sides. It was a clash of ideals. Il swung her blade at Seigi like a guillotine in rapid succession. This time, Seigi was no longer on the defensive. Instead, he gathered vacuum energy into his hand and shattered Il's blade with a single strike. Just as the situation started looking favorable, Il relied on her unpredictable speed to land a clean kick right in Seigi's face. In the heat of the crisis, Tauko threw the communication device to Seigi. From inside came Tom's voice, guiding him on how to defeat Il. Her power was based on indeterminacy. Through this indeterminacy, she could pass through any physical object and appear suddenly to strike before her opponent could react. Hearing this, Seigi did what every main character does. He closed his eyes and tried to sense the fundamental movement of matter. If this were a different series, that might have actually worked. But the author wasn't having it. Seigi got slashed and bled profusely, the pain seeping through his entire body until he collapsed. Just as Il was about to finish him off, Tauko charged forward in a rage. The tattoo on her forehead activated, fueled by her fierce desire to protect Seigi. Thanks to her, Seigi survived for the moment, but she couldn't hold out for long. With a single kick, Il sent Tauko flying, putting her life in danger. At this critical moment, Seigi heard a whisper from deep within. Why don't you just erase her with this power? The Void Maker wasn't born merely to erase creation and the world beyond. Despite the Void's taunting provocation, Seigi didn't lose his mind. Instead, he shouted back, telling it to shut up. He slammed his hand into the ground and summoned the vacuum. Right where Il and Tauko were standing, the ground suddenly caved in. Seigi launched forward and shattered Il's blade with his fist, then delivered a thunderous blow that sent her crashing down. Seigi caught Tauko safely and landed on the ground. Il, completely drained of strength, collapsed and accepted her fate. Just as Seigi was about to finish her off, a cross-eyed wolf cat leaped out to stop him. Looking at its ridiculous face, Seigi couldn't bring himself to strike. That turned out to be the right call, because behind it, Arya had arrived. Seigi had lost too much blood and was on the verge of collapsing from exhaustion. But Arya didn't seize the opportunity to kill him. Instead, she embraced him and planted a kiss. Whatever was in that kiss somehow washed away all of Seigi's fatigue. She warned Seigi to be more careful when using the vacuum. Otherwise, both Tauko and Il would have died. On Izzy's side, after toying with Behemoth long enough to get bored, she began applying her air compression technique to her bullets. Each shot was both blindingly fast and devastatingly powerful, leaving even a tough opponent like Behemoth completely unable to counter. After absorbing over a dozen compressed air rounds, his battered body collapsed. But right at that moment, Izzy felt the same sensation she had experienced at the high-rise. Behemoth had pulled the same trick again. He grinned as he picked up a gun, ready to finish her off, when a kick buried itself deep into his gut and sent him flying backward. It was none other than Lisa. The soldiers nearby seized the chance and emptied their magazines into him. Even if it didn't kill him, at least it hurt. After regrouping, Izzy's and Lisa combined their kicks and stomped down on him together. Poor Behemoth. Of all the people to mess with, he had to provoke women who held grudges. Just as they were about to kill him, Arya and Il appeared. That was enough for now. Lisa started to protest, but an overwhelming pressure descended upon them. Behind Arya loomed the shadow of the Void Spirit. It was vastly more powerful than Seigi's. Before absolute power, all arguments must yield. They could only watch helplessly as Arya took her people and left. Seigi thought he would never see that dangerous woman again. But the very next morning, whether by coincidence or design, Arya showed up strolling through town with Il and ran right into Seigi and Tauko. Before Seigi could say a word, Tauko pushed him aside. As Seigi's self-appointed bodyguard, she wanted to settle things with the kingdom's princess once and for all. Though settle things didn't mean a fight to the death. It was a ping-pong match. The format seemed harmless, but the way they played was anything but. Tauko gave it everything she had to avoid losing to Arya. But as they say, trying too hard only leads to dying hard. Nobody ever succeeds that way. And so she was knocked out cold. The loser's punishment was getting her assets needed until she passed out entirely. Seigi watched the whole scene and had no idea what to say. He asked Arya what the tattoos really were and how to unlock their full power. She turned the question back on him. Why did he want to use it? What was his purpose? Obviously to stop you people from screwing the world over. Is that so? Well, if everything goes according to my plan, the world will be at peace. There won't be any more war. Her answer left Seigi in deep silence. The conversation ended there. Seigi went home and met up with Izzy's and Tom. They also revealed that the United States wanted to use tattoo technology to dominate the world, to become the supreme overlord of all nations. It was far safer than nuclear weapons, but the plan didn't seem to be going anywhere. The kingdom, on the other hand, was making far greater strides down this very path. Seigi was blunt in response. He would not contribute a single ounce of effort toward America's ambition to play God. He was only here to stop war from breaking out. From this point on, a peaceful life for Seigi was an extreme luxury. After just a few calm days, Seigi was kidnapped by a mysterious figure. Izzy's was worried sick, leaping across rooftops to track his location. Right then, a phone call came in. Izzy's answered and froze the moment she heard the voice on the other end. She called him Blood. He was the one who had taken Seigi. He called to let her know he was borrowing the kid for a bit and would return him in one piece by morning. At his word, Izzy stopped pursuing. When Seigi woke up, he found himself at a facility isolated from the outside world. According to Blood, this was the kingdom's tattoo research facility. This godforsaken place had abducted countless people and treated them like sewer rats for experimentation. How did Blood know so much? Because he was once a member of Brahmin, the elite squad of tattoo wielders. Later, when he realized the kingdom was heading down an increasingly immoral path, Blood chose to betray them and act independently according to his own sense of justice. He had long wanted to destroy this wretched place. Whether this unethical research facility would still exist after today depended on Seigi. Hearing this lit a fire in Seigi's blood. He punched straight through the wall and charged inside. Midway through, Blood suddenly kicked Seigi in the face. Just as Seigi was about to curse him out, a bullet whizzed past. 2 soldiers appeared and were instantly taken down by Blood. The first lesson: learn to sense the enemy's presence. Otherwise, you'll be dead before you even realize it. Seigi was genuinely impressed. This man hadn't even entered his sealed state and was already this powerful. Seigi asked Blood about his power and about Arya. How many people like them existed in this world? 4 in total. The detonator tattoos were like ancient relics scattered across the world. There were 4 of them. The kingdom possessed 2. The United States had 1. That was precisely why America was losing the tattoo race and growing increasingly desperate. Furthermore, Arya's trip to Japan this time was also because of the 4th detonator tattoo. The moment Blood finished speaking, the 2 arrived at an empty room. From above came a laugh that sounded like a lifelong predator's cackle. This was Genius, a man whose delusions of grandeur were more intense than a seasoned addict's hallucinations. He proclaimed himself a once-in-a-generation scientific genius, before whom every other name was insignificant. But to Blood, he was nothing more than a second-rate scientist with a chronic untreated condition, a master practitioner of mental self-gratification. Infuriated by Blood's contempt, Genius summoned a group of modified humans engineered from the spirits of tattoos. Though they were replicas, he boasted that their power was no less than the originals. Moreover, if they fell unconscious or remained inactive for a short period, their bodies would explode. For someone with a strong sense of justice like Blood or Seigi, knocking them unconscious was virtually impossible. Upon learning this from Genius, Blood assured Seigi that they would save every single one of them. For Blood, killing these people would have been effortless. Even without unleashing his full power, he could easily push them all back with a single punch. The 2 fought in perfect coordination, sharing the pressure between them. After a while, Blood stopped holding back. His Void Maker erupted with ferocious intensity. The tattoo's spirit materialized, and Seigi felt a crushing pressure before blacking out. When he came to, every modified human lay unconscious on the floor. Genius saw this and snapped his fingers, intending to detonate the bombs. But his snap was met with eerie silence. During the brief battle, Blood had located the implanted bomb inside each person's body and removed every single one. Truly unbelievable. Blood broke down the door to Genius's chamber, ready to kill him. His assistant stepped in front of him, willing to die in his place. Genius, who normally showed no fear in his deranged state, stepped forward to shield her. He begged that if Blood was going to kill someone, let it be him, but to leave her unharmed. Seigi was moved by the scene, but Blood was not. A hero wasn't just someone with absolute justice and overwhelming power. It was also someone with the selfishness to force others to believe in their ideals. Without unwavering commitment to one's own convictions, how could you fight to the bitter end against powerful enemies? With those words, Blood struck them both down. But surprisingly, he didn't kill them. He only knocked them unconscious. From the very beginning, Blood's justice was one without killing. The strong must protect and show mercy to the weak. After shaping Seigi's philosophy, Blood moved on to teaching him how to master the vacuum. Seigi couldn't keep creating massive black holes. Against enemies skilled in close combat, it would be useless. Worse, he'd end up killing 800 enemies but destroying himself 1,000 times over. Blood plucked a single strand of hair and showed it to Seigi. On it were countless tiny, perfectly uniform holes. If Seigi could achieve at least this level of precision, taking someone's life or subduing them would become effortless. Naturally, Blood would teach Seigi everything he could, holding nothing back. Seigi was puzzled as to why Blood invested so much in him. That answer would come later. Blood was a man shrouded in mystery, shouldering immense responsibilities. Before joining the kingdom, he had been a colonel in the United States military, the very person who trained Izzy into the warrior she was today. She refused to believe Blood had truly betrayed his country. Something must have forced him onto this path. Blood never explained his reasons. Perhaps he trusted that Izzy's would understand him. He told her that the ruins containing the tattoos were no longer simply places where humans obtained tattoos. They would become the brush that repaints the canvas of the world. Arya was already at the fourth ruin. There was no catching up now. Blood needed to prepare in advance for the upheaval to come. Before leaving, he told Izzy's to take good care of Segi. The boy's path of growth was still long. She mustn't let him stray from it. Segi didn't let them down. He trained relentlessly, never slacking off even at home, pushing himself to the point of collapse on the floor. Tauko saw this as her chance to make her move and seal the deal, so that even if Segi wanted to run later, he wouldn't be able to. Luckily, he woke up just in time. Otherwise, his bachelor life would have been over for good. Some time later, the US military launched an operation to ambush the kingdom's princess while she was conquering a ruin. The campaign mobilized nearly every sealed operative the United States had stationed in Japan. They were all seasoned fighters who had been through numerous battles, true elites in every sense. In addition, there were a considerable number of tattoo clone warriors. Though they weren't as powerful as full sealed operatives, they could still make significant contributions in combat. An operation of this scale naturally couldn't proceed without Segi. His presence alone exerted considerable pressure on the enemy. Leading the team was Colonel Sanders. Although his rank had technically reached Brigadier General, he still preferred everyone to call him Colonel. Elsewhere, Blood was occupied with his own work. When he caught wind that this battle was about to erupt, he wanted to stop it but simply couldn't. He had reached a critical stage in his process. If he abandoned it to fight now, everything would be for nothing. The moment the ruins came into view, Sanders ordered his troops to deliver a greeting drenched in gunpowder. Firearms in this case weren't meant to be the decisive factor in taking down the target. He simply wanted to send his regards. The sealed warriors dropped down one by one. From within the ruins emerged a group composed entirely of women. Leading them was Cal, the vice captain of the Brahmin squad. Johnson, the captain of the American forces, was the first to approach the enemy. He was brimming with excitement, right up until his entire body suddenly dropped to its knees before Cal. To everyone's shock, Johnson's head fell to the ground and no one could understand how. Cal clearly looked as though she hadn't moved at all. The battle officially began from that moment. The maids accompanying Cal were not official sealed operatives, yet their strength, speed, and reflexes were on par with any sealed. Even Izzy's couldn't believe that the opponent before her didn't possess an independent tattoo. On Cal's front, she was engaged by Major Wang. He was an exceptional marksman. Each bullet he fired didn't travel forward immediately. Instead, they hung suspended in midair, then surged forward all at once in a single volley alongside the others. One bullet at a time could be dodged, but a simultaneous barrage like this, there was no evading that. This was what gave Wang his confidence. And yet Cal stood perfectly still. She didn't slice the bullets apart. She deflected them back, catching Wang off guard and landing a hit. He emptied another full magazine at her, and still Cal didn't budge. With nothing more than a glance, she pinned Wang against a tree. The trunk buckled inward under the brutal pressure and snapped in half. Wang was written out of the story by the author, sent to the back to collect his boxed lunch. Seeing this, Segi wanted to step up and challenge Cal himself. However, he figured that capturing the princess would minimize casualties on both sides. Just as Segi moved forward, Cal suddenly materialized behind him. She told him to stay put and do nothing. Otherwise, things would escalate further. A flurry of sword strikes appeared, encircling Segi. They left precise, moderate cuts, deep enough to immobilize him, but not so severe as to endanger his life. Sanders watched from above with mounting tension. Truly, hearing about someone's reputation paled in comparison to witnessing it firsthand. Inside the ruins, Arya received word that enemies had launched an assault outside, in significant numbers and with formidable strength. To spare Cal from exhaustion, she decided to lend her power to Il while simultaneously severing the tattoo link between Il and Tauko. This meant that while Il fought, Tauko would receive no power. The situation outside was already grim for the Americans. Il's arrival made things even more desperate. She let out a scream like a feral cat. A dark, mysterious smoke appeared from nowhere, enveloping the area where Il stood. When it dissipated, in her place stood a colossal beast. It launched into the sky and began tearing down aircraft one by one. The spot where Sanders and Tauko stood was far from safe either. He hoisted Tauko onto his shoulder and leaped down. Once they landed, he handed her off to someone else and headed straight for Cal. He couldn't let her continue the slaughter unchecked. Izzy's arrived just in time to provide support. Sanders possessed a reinforcement tattoo that allowed him to unleash air punches capable of dealing damage from a distance, but it wasn't enough. After fighting for a while, Sanders and Izzy's realized Cal could erect multiple air shields to block their attacks. No matter how many punches he threw or how many shots Izzy's fired, it was all useless. While the two sides were locked in a stalemate, Cal suddenly found it hard to breathe. A punch landed squarely in her stomach. Izzy's had reduced the oxygen concentration in the air surrounding Cal. It was a tactic that was both brilliant and terrible, because while it affected Cal, it also provoked her into deploying her ultimate move, erecting a shield that pulled air toward her, then detonating it outward in all four directions. Sanders dodged it, but Izzy's didn't. He charged forward from what he thought was a safe distance, ready to throw a punch, when his arm flashed with a spray of blood. His forearm dropped to the ground before his stunned eyes. Only now did he realize what made Cal truly dangerous: the sword she always carried. At this point, the outcome of the battle was all but decided. Cal slashed across Sanders' eyes, plunging his entire world into darkness. Seeing this, Izzy's didn't despair, but she clearly recognized that in the tattoo arms race, the United States had lost completely. No one currently in the military could defeat the monster standing before them. Cal existed on an entirely different level. Just as Izzy's was about to hit the ground and play dead, a vehicle came barreling in. Cal sliced it apart and looked ahead. It was Blood. Colonel Sanders' team thought they were the ones setting the ambush, never realizing that this entire operation was a trap laid by Arya to lure Blood out. Segi was overjoyed to see him arrive, but tragedy struck almost immediately. Behind him, Arya had appeared. The extent of her power was unknown. Today she manipulated the earth itself, raising a wall from the ground, then driving earthen spears into Segi's arm. She laid out today's script for him. Arya wanted both Segi and Blood dead so she could reclaim their detonator tattoos. It was an indispensable step in her plan. Before the main event began, Arya would torture Segi first. She was sick of him constantly spouting that justice nonsense she found so absurd. It would never lead anywhere if all he did was talk. Back on Blood's front, in the middle of this tense standoff, he suddenly told Cal to love him. Cal's face instantly turned beet red. She denied it repeatedly, then admitted it. She couldn't fool Blood. Whenever she lied, she had a habit of playing with her hair. But unfortunately for Cal, Blood pulled Izzy's close and declared that this was the woman who truly had his heart. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. Massive shields came crashing toward them both. Blood used his vacuum to neutralize the devastating attack. The real battle had only just begun. The reason the princess dared to set this trap was because Blood couldn't unleash his full power the way Cal could. If he did, his spirit would be depleted, and the tattoo would begin devouring its host's body. That was one of the reasons detonator tattoo wielders were immensely powerful yet could never display their full strength. At this point, Blood couldn't be as reckless as Segi, swallowing everything in one gulp. He could only split the vacuum into smaller spheres and launch them forward as projectiles. Some were used for offense, while others collided with Cal's shields, canceling each other out. On the current battlefield, Lisa was the only American still capable of fighting. Her battle was far from easy either, given how formidable her opponent was. Through a tightly coordinated chain of actions, Lisa managed to corner her enemy and end the grueling fight. However, just before the maid died, she landed one last gut-wrenching blow on Lisa. Looking around, Lisa spotted Blood fighting in the distance. She was about to head over when she noticed Sanders was on death's doorstep. At that moment, Lisa radioed the sole remaining aircraft still in the sky. The priority right now wasn't fighting or retrieving fallen comrades. It was saving those still alive. Get here immediately. She had barely finished speaking when she quickly told them to abort, because right in front of her was the colossal beast. She and Leonardo had no choice but to engage. If they didn't, it would kill everyone else on the ground. The beast didn't just have powerful claws and an agile body. Its tail was incredibly versatile as well. Without that tail relentlessly pursuing them, Lisa and Leonardo could have comfortably dealt damage and killed it. Leonardo possessed a unique ability to create purple crystalline structures. They weren't particularly hard or sturdy, but they could detonate like medium-range bombs or artillery shells. Combined with Lisa's fire and explosion abilities, the two were a true arsonist duo. Additionally, Leonardo could liquefy his crystal shards into a swamp-like substance, which he used to lock Il in place. Lisa was waiting for exactly that. She fired massive explosive rounds, inflicting serious damage on Il. While the two waited to see if the beast was dead, Ill's tail lashed out again and slammed into them. Before Lisa could steady herself, a colossal claw descended upon her like the hand of death. In that split second, Leonardo threw himself forward and took the full brunt of the blow. His crystal shards locked both him and the beast together. Leonardo kicked Lisa to the side, then opened fire, ending both his own life and the monster's. Returning to Blood's battle, the two were still locked in a tug of war, advancing and retreating as they chased each other through the forest. After a prolonged exchange, Cal finally found an opening and severed Blood's arm. In trying to capitalize on that opening, she nearly had her head grabbed by him. The severed arm wasn't much of a problem. He simply reattached it and it functioned as normal. Seeing this, Cal launched multiple shields hurtling forward. Blood shattered them and threw a flashbang, then suddenly closed the distance on Cal. She swung her sword to attack and maintain distance, but Blood snapped the blade in half. He gathered another surge of impact force and blasted Cal backward. One might think the advantage now belonged to Blood, but it didn't. She linked with her tattoo, borrowing its power to create a shield and slam it forward with crushing force. The strike was so fast that even Blood couldn't react in time. Outside, Izzy's attempt to rescue Seigi failed. Arya had bound and suspended her in the air, just like Seigi. At that same moment, Blood was blasted out of the forest. Cal followed closely behind, her eyes blazing red, her sword radiating an imposing blue glow. This was the source of Cal's absolute confidence in herself. Blood didn't underestimate his opponent either. He knew Cal was only the vice captain, yet the strongest member of Brahmin could only be her. Blood murmured under his breath, trying to persuade his tattoo to lend him its power. Only with the tattoo's absolute strength could he stand a chance against Cal. But the spirit within the tattoo gave no response. Cal, meanwhile, was like a starving beast that had finally sunk its teeth into its prey and refused to let go. Her attacks grew fiercer and more relentless. Shields were sliced into fragments that flew toward Blood without warning, giving him no time to react. He collapsed and vomited a massive amount of blood. Izzy was beside herself watching the scene. She screamed at Seigi to use his power. Why was he just standing there? Seigi had been urging his tattoo from the start, but Arya's energy was suppressing it. It wasn't until this very moment that Seigi finally connected with the spirit. He burst forward, his vacuum swallowing the enemy's devastating attack whole. Blood seized that opening and grabbed hold of Cal. In that brief instant of contact, he killed her. But the price Blood paid for this battle was enormous. From within his body, jagged, sharp stakes began sprouting outward. It was a sign that Blood's spirit had been depleted. The spirit within the tattoo had begun devouring its host. At that moment, Blood screamed, "Absorb me now." Hearing those words, Seigi shouted back, "Don't be insane. We didn't fight so you could be left behind." Blood didn't care what Seigi said. He spoke directly to Seigi's spirit. "Do it. I know you can hear me." Arya had come for Blood, and Seigi wanted to step in and stop her. But Sanders issued the order to fire missiles, forcing her to intercept them instead. Seigi's spirit, ignoring its master's pleas, surged forward and devoured Blood. In the brief moment before the end, the only thing Blood could do was apologize to Izzy's. His entire life had been one of selfishness, chasing his own ideals. He was truly sorry. Seigi and Izzy stood frozen in shock, staring blankly at the scene. After everything, Arya showed no anger. Instead, she told Seigi she would show him what true despair and hatred looked like. The moment her words ended, Tauko emerged from the forest. Seeing that Seigi was safe, she happily ran toward him, unaware that Il was right behind her. In one gulp, Il swallowed Tauko whole and transformed into human form. Once again, Seigi witnessed a heartbreaking scene. He didn't scream. He didn't move. But everyone understood he had reached the deepest level of human agony. On the outside, not a single reaction. On the inside, his soul and heart were shattering. Even after returning from the battlefield, Seigi remained in that state. Weissman, the man who had introduced Seigi to the world of tattoos, appeared. He desperately wanted to apologize to Seigi, but it was too late. The entire future of humanity now rested on his shoulders. At the same time, Izzy approached, wanting to apprehend Weissman. Seigi noticed one of Izzy's sleeves fluttering empty in the wind, a consequence of the battle. Weissman looked at Izzy's. "You can't do that. I was Blood's support operative in Japan. Now that he's gone, I must carry on his work." Blood's ideal was to erase every tattoo in the world. By absorbing Blood, Seigi also inherited a fragment of his soul. From that point on, he was able to revisit Blood's memories and past experiences. Years ago, Blood had left the United States and defected to the kingdom. At the time, he was an ordinary man with no tattoo, yet his combat abilities were extraordinarily refined. He had fought a fierce battle against Cal back then. Though he lost, he demonstrated terrifying potential. Moreover, Blood's body was compatible with the detonator tattoo. The United States had no equipment capable of testing for this compatibility. Only the kingdom possessed that technology at the time. From that moment on, Blood became a detonator tattoo wielder, and came to understand that America had already lost the tattoo race. In the early days, Blood wandered around exploring. On one occasion, he accidentally walked into Cal's room while she was changing. One look from him was all it took for her to completely fall for him. A real man conquers women differently. After all, Cal told Blood he could go wherever he pleased. He could even lurk outside the women's restroom, and no one would say a word. The only area he should avoid was Samara's domain. There was a chance their very first meeting could also be his last. Blood wasn't just bold in mind, but reckless in action too. He feared no one. He gradually approached the area rumored to be the princess's tattoo research facility, curious about what kind of security system lay within. It appeared rather lax. Below, a young man appeared. This was Varma, the king's ever-present attendant. On the surface, the king indulged the princess's every whim. Behind the scenes, he quietly investigated yet never took action. Varma had been sent to scout. While he was clarifying the intruder's intentions, Samara arrived. She was a deaf-mute girl, but her combat abilities were staggeringly powerful. Varma ran first and got away clean. Blood, after a brief skirmish, was launched into the sky. When he landed, multiple parts of his body bore severe injuries. But thanks to the detonator tattoo's power, every wound healed rapidly, as if he'd never been beaten at all. After confirming Blood was perfectly fine, Varma invited him to meet the king. All the king wanted to know was what his daughter was planning. On the surface, nothing about the king seemed unusual. But with his sharp, observant eyes, Blood realized that Princess Arya was not the king's biological daughter. Exposed by this revelation, the furious king threw Blood out. Some time later, his first mission arrived. American military scouts had been detected at the first ruin. Blood and Cal were dispatched to eliminate them. After subduing his target, Blood didn't kill. He merely knocked the man unconscious. Cal was different. She killed them so thoroughly that they couldn't possibly be any more dead. This directly contradicted Blood's inner principles and planted the first seeds of resentment toward the Brahmin organization. A year and a half passed. Blood gradually mastered his power and returned to confront Samara. Their fight was brief, but every collision was like two tanks firing at each other, each explosion rumbling across a massive radius. Blood broke Samara's weapon, forcing her to channel her power into her fists and engage in close-quarters combat. That was exactly what Blood had been waiting for. He erected a vacuum space that devoured Samara's power completely. Sensing the danger, she retreated. From the bushes, Varma raised a stone pillar to block Blood's path. Blood charged forward and drove a powerful punch into Samara's stomach. She managed to land a vicious counterattack of her own. However, her body couldn't withstand his punch, while Blood recovered effortlessly from her strike. Using the vacuum's power, Blood and Varma tunneled straight inside. They entered a room where three girls sat playing video games. The girls knew the two were intruders yet showed no defensive reaction whatsoever. The first girl, Kujali, introduced herself as Arya's sister and took them on a tour of the facility. The upper floors housed laboratories and were off-limits. The three of them entered an area containing numerous people suspended in liquid-filled chambers. These were the clones the kingdom had created. Most of them were Arya's sisters. They looked like clones, but none of them actually were. 35 years ago, the kingdom discovered the ruins and the tattoos. The king wanted to use them to unify the world, and so human experimentation began. What no one expected was that the kingdom used over 3,000 people as test subjects. They cut open and dissected men, and forced women to bear children to produce tattoo warriors. When Arya learned the truth behind it all, she was consumed with fury and developed a deep hatred for humanity. That was the reason Arya wanted to annihilate the human race. Arya had the support of some of her sisters, but not all. Kujali was proof of that. She didn't hate humans. If she rejected them, then what did that make her? At that moment, two guards rushed in to seize Blood and Varma. Kujali intercepted them and even helped Blood obtain the data he was after. Right then, Cal called to check on the situation. Kujali tried to conceal Blood's presence but failed. The two guards behind her had already screamed out a report of everything. Blood and Varma were now in grave danger. They sprinted as fast as they could to escape the area. On the way out, Varma couldn't react in time and suffered a devastating wound to his shoulder. Blood carried him back to the king. As it turned out, the root cause of humanity's calamity traced back to this very man. The king recognized his own mistakes, but it was far too late. Even though Arya received his love, she never let go of her desire to destroy mankind. Her blade turned toward the kingdom itself, and she began laying waste to everything. "So you've given up then?" The king said nothing. He opened a hidden passage and told Blood to escape through it. Right now, Blood was the only person with the power to stop Arya. "Go, and keep fighting, you failed hero of justice." Even with the king's help, Arya's people still tracked Blood down. They surrounded and attacked him, repeatedly pushing him into dire straits. Fortunately, thanks to his quick thinking and adaptability, Blood survived. Blood had originally fought only for Izzy's. But over time, he also carried the ideals and hopes of Varma, Kujali, and the foolish king. He couldn't give up. Segi had a brief conversation with Blood within the depths of his consciousness. Blood urged him to keep moving forward, to carry on the mission of bringing the world into balance and not let Arya destroy it. Segi couldn't believe that a task even someone as capable as Blood couldn't accomplish was now placed on his shoulders. "Whether you can or not, you won't know until you try. Either way, my future lies in your hands, and those very same hands are your future too, Segi." From that day forward, Segi inherited Blood's will. He and Izzy's, following Weissman's guidance, took refuge in a forest unknown to anyone. For an entire year, Segi trained relentlessly. The fruit of that effort was clear. In a sparring match, he took down Izzy's, Tom, and Tamaki with ease. The Segi of today was more mature, more composed, and more formidable. He himself couldn't understand why his combat instincts had become so sharp. Observation, threat assessment, and decision-making all seemed to run on autopilot in his mind. It just came naturally. When they returned home and noticed signs of a break-in, Weissman called to warn them that Arya may have discovered their hideout. May have? She had already sent them a gift, and so the group gathered with Weissman and watched the disc Arya had sent. It showed footage of Arya having fun at a beach, surrounded by women with stunning figures and outrageously generous curves, enough to make Tom and Tamaki drool uncontrollably. The recent flood in America was probably caused by these two. Arya knew Segi was watching. She announced that she might build a research facility there and asked why he didn't come lend a hand. To make sure Segi couldn't refuse, she had taken Lisa hostage. Though her words carried no overt threat of death, no one could predict what Arya was capable of or how far she'd go. After the video ended, Weissman advised everyone to swallow their rage and keep their swollen pride in check. Arya was not only powerful but also possessed the ability to seal the powers of other tattoos. That was a privilege unique to detonator tattoo wielders. Unfortunately, Segi still hadn't figured out how to use it. So the best course of action was to do nothing. No matter how much havoc Arya wreaked across the world, she couldn't achieve her goal of burying all of humanity without Segi. Weissman was researching an extremely dangerous virus that could be implanted into tattoos and spread from there. Once it was complete, they wouldn't need to hold back any longer. If Blood were still alive, he'd say patience was better than getting destroyed. Izzy spoke up at just the right moment and declared otherwise. Even if Blood couldn't defeat Arya, he would still have saved Lisa no matter what. So enough talk. You need to get us to America and prepare for a fight with Arya. Before leaving Japan, Tom revealed himself to be a certified degenerate otaku. He bought a mountain of magazines featuring his favorite character to bring along. Even if he died, he had to have one last moment with his idol. Tamaki was even more intense. He'd won at life with a score of 10-0, having landed himself a cosplayer girlfriend. He told her he was about to leave Japan. If he survived and came back, he would marry her. Yumi heard his words and knew this mission would be incredibly dangerous. She tried to stop him. He might be the main character in her story, but in the author's story, he was just a side character. No matter how he went, death was waiting. Even so, as a soldier, Tamaki couldn't run. They had barely returned to the States and hadn't even taken action when the ruin guarded by Sanders registered signs of intrusion. Before them stood the shadow of Vegeta, commander of the Special Tattoo Forces. He charged forward, polished one of the headlights on a vehicle, then cackled like a deranged lunatic. "I offer my body as sacrifice, pushing souls from the world of peace into chaos. I dedicate myself to the Creator." The moment he finished, a grotesque creature resembling a nose, drenched in blood red, manifested and charged forward. utterly indifferent to the hail of bullets and bombs raining down upon it. Ajita wasn't the only one. Across multiple points around the ruin, members of the Brahmin squad were detected. Segi's group arrived to provide support, but was mistakenly identified as the enemy and came under heavy fire. In the end, they had no choice but to use their powers to knock the soldiers unconscious and push through. Looking down from above, they witnessed the Brahmin squad massacring soldiers, inflicting such torment that the victims begged for death. The woman beside them was no less savage. She could shrink bullets down to the size of needles, then summon massive stakes that annihilated every soldier lying in ambush around her in a single sweep. Seeing this, Segi was so shaken, he nearly lost control and charged down. That was until he looked over at Izzy's, whose face had twisted with rage yet who still held herself back. They hadn't spotted Arya yet. She may have already reached the ruin ahead of them. Tom and Segi had to head there and prepare for the worst-case scenario. Izzy's and Tamaki would stay behind to help the others. In the sky above, the bloodthirsty woman was enlarging her tiny needles into massive projectiles. Even tattoo-enhanced soldiers couldn't survive against her. Tamaki couldn't stand watching any longer and dove down to help. The soldiers were so confused they didn't even know who was on their side. He kicked one of them unconscious just to knock some sense into them. The woman summoned stone stakes to attack Tamaki, but with his unique ability, he blocked the surprise assault and showed her he was no easy target either. While the two were exchanging pleasantries before the real fight, some idiot who didn't know he was an idiot leaped down to show off, screaming, "I can take all of you alone." Before he could even finish his sentence, the woman sent him straight to meet his maker. On Izzy's front, she was about to finish off Behemoth when Lisa jumped out. The emptiness in Lisa's eyes made it clear that ill had taken over her body. If it were ill in her own body, it would have been straightforward. But Izzy's was severely handicapped. She couldn't harm Lisa's body and was forced to retreat step after step. Behemoth, true to form as always, started barking smugly the moment he sensed an advantage, irritating Izzy's beyond her limit. She swore she would rip his mouth open so wide he'd never speak again. But this was no easy task. Ill was already a nightmare to deal with on her own, and Behemoth was always lurking behind, waiting to land a cheap shot whenever Izzy's let her guard down. Having to split her attention to defend against such a treacherous opponent meant Izzy's couldn't fight at full strength. She was constantly being suppressed. The worst came when Behemoth wove his threads into a net that descended from above. Izzy's threw a bomb to blast an opening and slipped through. But the threads didn't become useless. They kept moving and locked her in place. Ill descended from above with a devastating slash. Her blade was like a grenade launcher. Every swing unleashed an explosion of extreme pressure. Izzy's had dodged them before, but not this time. The blast weakened her body just long enough to leave her defenseless against the combined assault from Ill and Behemoth. Fortunately, two teammates arrived just in time. They spotted a figure that looked like Izzy's and came to confirm. And lucky for everyone, it really was her. Izzy's told them to beat the living hell out of Behemoth, warning that the freak was so depraved he wouldn't flinch even if you shoved a 30-centimeter rod up where the sun doesn't shine. They didn't disappoint. One of them scattered the threads, denying Behemoth his long-range attack position. The other pulled out a specialized weapon. Wherever it struck Behemoth's body, the flesh sizzled and caved in, clearly agonizing beyond words. With Behemoth no longer stabbing her in the back, Izzy's was free to fight Ill head-on. Her seamless coordination of gun and short blade left Ill unable to find an effective counter, continuously being pushed back. When Izzy's closed in, Ill swung her sword and shattered the short blade. But Izzy's not only avoided injury, she found an opening to strike. In that tiny gap, Izzy's threw a punch so devastating it knocked Ill clean out of Lisa's body. Ill collapsed after that blow, on the side of her two allies, just as she was about to praise their solid work. The situation fell apart. The first had his fingers severed, dropping his weapon and rendering him unable to fight. The second fared far worse. His entire body was bound by razor-thin threads. With the slightest tug, Behemoth sliced him into pieces, dead beyond dead. Izzy's immediately rushed back. She fired a single shot into Behemoth's most vulnerable spot. Unlike every time before when he'd shrug it off and keep gloating, this time he screamed in agony. This was a custom-made bullet designed specifically for sealed targets, laced with snake venom to give special care to scum like Behemoth. She delivered a finishing blow that ensured his bloodline would end with him, then kicked his body off the cliff. Below, Tamaki was pummeling the woman as if a father were disciplining his child. The sheer difference in physique gave him an overwhelming advantage in close combat. His acceleration ability warped space itself like an impenetrable shield, rendering all of her spikes completely useless against him. When she was punched hard into the wall, the woman erected a bed of needles and lay in wait, daring him to charge in. Tamaki wasn't fazed in the slightest. His muscles tensed and he rocketed forward. By sheer coincidence, Behemoth, having just been booted off the cliff, came crashing down at that exact moment. And so the two of them departed on a one-way trip together, destination unknown. On Sega's front, he made it into the dungeon and encountered Cal again. That tenacious woman was impossibly hard to kill. Blood had grabbed her by the head and she was still alive and well. Cal had sealed both her own power and Segi's. Now the two could only fight in pure hand-to-hand combat. It was only in fighting Cal directly that Segi truly understood how terrifyingly strong she was. The tempo of their battle was blindingly fast, yet every single move she made laid the foundation for the next. For instance, after throwing two shuriken, Cal would immediately close the distance. When Segi tried to get close, she cracked the pommel of her sword into his skull, then spun and slashed horizontally. Though the move cost her a sword, it created the opening to cut across Sega's stomach. Taking a severe wound, he had to push the detonator's power to its limit to heal. Segi couldn't understand why someone like Cal would serve Arya, a person who wanted to erase everything. In Cal's eyes, Segi was the selfish one for rejecting others. Arya was different. She rejected herself. When Arya activated the 4 ruins with the 4 detonator keys, she would merge with her remaining sisters. A complete unification of body, thought, and ideology. Arya wasn't rejecting the world. She was rejecting herself to make it better. That was what made her followers so blindly devoted. Cal attacked while explaining. Perhaps caught off guard, Segi became passive and took a slash. But he quickly regained his composure and used his entire arm to swallow her sword. He then pulled it free and used it to sever the sheath holding Cal's remaining blades. She managed to keep only one. With just a single sword, Cal could no longer sustain a prolonged fight. She shifted to a one-strike kill stance. This ultimate technique required immense concentration, forcing Cal to close her eyes. But the instant Segi stepped into her attack range, she unleashed a slash aimed straight at his head. The armored gauntlet on his arm prevented her from severing it, but the strike destroyed Segi's only means of defense. With her killing blow having failed, Cal tried to knock Segi down and finish him with another strike. But he stood firm and refused to fall. He thrust his palm forward. His entire hand twisted as if trying to bore through Cal's stomach. The sheer afterforce of the devastating blow generated a gust that blew everything behind her away. Segi had barely begun to celebrate defeating the enemy that even blood couldn't overcome when the crystal structures inside the ruin simultaneously shattered. It was the sign that Arya had successfully conquered the ruin. She appeared in her true form, wings emerging from her back like a divine being. Segi didn't waver or tremble. In his eyes burned a boundless hatred, for it was this very woman who had taken Tauco from him. Do you have any idea how many lifetimes of good karma it took to find a girl like her? Following his roar, Segi's vacuum power surged straight toward her. Arya flew into the sky to dodge. She summoned energy particles that behaved like living things, latching onto Segi and firing beams of light that engulfed him. Following that came energy spheres of even more terrifying destructive power. Facing this kind of strength, Segi was truly helpless. Why, when they both wielded 2 tattoos, was Arya this overwhelmingly powerful while he was not? She was like a god with limitless power. He was a mere mortal who had been lucky enough to grasp a fragment of divinity. While the two fought inside, the shockwaves from the battle sealed the entrance and cut off Tom's tracking signal. Luckily, in the sky above, the blood-red nose creature was shot down by a missile. Before dying, it transformed into a colossal sphere and plummeted to the earth. The impact pushed sand and stone aside, carving a path deep into the ruin. The 3 of them didn't hesitate for a second and charged into the true battlefield of this catastrophic war. Inside the ruin, even facing a power gap so vast that victory seemed impossible, Segi refused to give up. Throughout his desperate struggle, Arya did nothing but watch. She didn't lift a single finger. The earth element, or more precisely the ruin itself, moved on its own and was more than enough to keep Segi pinned down. He pushed himself until his trigger was completely spent and still couldn't touch Arya. She explained clearly why Segi couldn't use the sealing ability or any of the detonator's other powers. It was simply because he clung too stubbornly to hatred and petty justice. Arya was different. She loved this world and harbored no hatred. Out of pure love for the world, she was willing to destroy everything. As if the world itself acknowledged her, Arya was granted powers befitting a god. In a few more minutes, once the ruins synchronized and locked onto her soul, Arya would become even more terrifying. Furthermore, Weissman had never intended to help Segi defeat Arya. He knew how to unlock the tattoo's full potential, but never shared even a hint of it. Weissman only wanted to poison Arya through Segi. Just as Arya finished her explanation, Segi was struck down, his entire body impaled on sharp stakes, unable to move even slightly. Tamaki arrived just in time, smashing the stakes apart and pulling him out. Standing before Arya, who sat above them like a deity on a throne, all three knew victory was impossible. They couldn't see even the slightest opening. The last hope could only be found in Segi. Tom took on the mission of getting him out. The other two would stay behind and hold the line. Tom successfully got Segi onto Colonel Sanders' helicopter. The colonel had a nuclear launch device in his hands, waiting only for the outcome of the battle inside. Izzy's and Tamaki gave everything they had. She used her powers to deflect Arya's energy beams. When Arya saw her attacks being neutralized, she retaliated with a variety of methods, inflicting considerable injuries on both of them. Izzy's had been waiting for exactly this. Arya had grown arrogant and let her guard down. Izzy's had Tamaki hurl her forward, successfully closing the distance to Arya. The princess swung a massive earthen blade that severed Izzy's mechanical arm and left a deep gash in her stomach. But at the same time, Izzy's landed a kick that knocked Arya off her earthen colossus. That kick didn't just knock Arya from her throne, it snapped her back to reality. Arya channeled a massive surge of energy into the ground. The entire ruin followed the energy current deep underground and detonated in a horrific explosion. Dust shot skyward to an unbelievable height and width. After the blast, no one could be seen except Arya, hovering in midair. Sanders immediately activated the underground nuclear launch platform. Even if he died, he wanted to take her down with him. But his moment of triumph was met with nothing. Arya had long since destroyed the dangerous toy buried beneath the earth. Only now did Sanders realize he'd been screaming like a deluded fool this entire time. Right at that moment, unnoticed by anyone, Segi leaped from the helicopter. He rushed forward and embraced Izzy's below, overcome with grief and despair. He felt no different from blood. Both of them were useless, forced to watch everyone around them die. On Arya's side, she had been waiting all this time, summoning the detonator spirit to devour Segi. But to everyone's surprise, neither Segi nor Izzy suffered any harm. At that very moment, Segi activated the sealing ability and neutralized the spirit. Everyone was stunned, but something even more unexpected followed. Across Segi's body, unidentified crystal fragments began appearing. It was a sign that the spirit was devouring its host. Segi realized it wasn't because his soul was being consumed. It was the drug Weissman had given him before the battle. Arya hadn't anticipated this either. She assumed she was the intended target of the poison. The truth was different. Weissman had known from the beginning that Arya had established a link with Segi through her kiss. That very link was the crucial catalyst for this reaction. The drug Weissman administered didn't just cause Segi to be devoured. Arya suffered the same fate. It officially severed her connection with her sisters. Without that link, Arya could no longer wield power at the intensity she'd just displayed. The two of them transformed into colossal monsters and went at each other with everything they had on the ground. At first, Segi held a slight advantage, but before long, he was pinned down and pummeled. Arya beat Segi the way a creditor beats a debtor who's been dodging payments for years. Every thunderous crash echoed through the air, filling the onlookers with despair. Someone tried using a tactical weapon to support Segi, but it was useless. It didn't inflict even the slightest damage. The monster's outer shell was harder than armored steel. Tom screamed from above, "Get up, kid. If you take any more hits, the whole world is going down with you. Fight for the justice of 7 billion people." Tom's cry may not have reached the heavens, but it was enough for Segi to hear. He sprang up, caught Arya's fist, and delivered a godlike blow that sent her flying backward. The two charged at each other again in brutal close-quarters combat. To the untrained eye, it looked like an even, intense exchange, blow for blow. But anyone who truly understood the situation knew Segi had this in the bag. A guy who'd been training in martial arts since the womb versus someone who understood nothing about hand-to-hand combat. The outcome was obvious. The finale came when Segi grabbed the monster's jaw and pried it open. Inside was Arya, so terrified she nearly wet herself. He dove straight in, ready to finish her off once and for all. But in times like these, of the 36 stratagems, running is the best. Arya left behind one legendary parting line, "Remember my face." Then she vanished without a trace, and just like that, the battle came to an end. Everyone watching, whether through a screen or in person, erupted in joy. After all, nobody had to die, and that was reason enough to celebrate. Even so, as long as Arya was still alive, the seeds of disaster had not been fully uprooted. There would still be earth-shattering battles ahead that Segi would have to face. He could neither run nor hide.